Hi, Francesca.
Hi, Dean.
Welcome back. It's been 115 episodes since you were here last, and so we have a lot to talk about.
We certainly do.
Okay. Okay. So first, let people know a little bit about you, and then I want to get into some of the broader marketing and trend questions that we can go over.
Sure thing. I'm Francesca Furchtgott at Conifer Co. We're a brand and content agency. My role there is to be the fractional CMO for small companies who need to get noticed, be remembered, but on a small budget. They
Mm.
need to disrupt, they need to be seen, and they need to do that without spending $1 million on advertising. I extend that disrupt big at a small scale approach in my volunteer work too. I run a free art gallery, which
Hmm.
is sort of like a little free library, but for art. And it has the same policy for books. Take one, leave one, and
Right.
hopefully spread joy.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so you're talking to a lot of companies, both clients and companies who don't become clients. Like, what are some of the bigger shifts you're seeing in sort of how companies are prioritizing their marketing or their strategies in 2025?
I think one thing that I may be biased towards, given the work that I do as a fractional CMO and given the companies that I end up talking to,
Yeah.
is that I am speaking to companies that are thinking about their marketing in a less integrated way
Mhm.
than the rest of their core team. Um, these are businesses that think of marketing as something that they can outsource. And for certain businesses, that works really well. I think in today's economy, where businesses are trying to weather storms, businesses are trying to figure out what's going to be next for them and how do they double down and focus on what they're good at.
Mhm.
Bringing in a fractional team or outsourcing their entire marketing team is something that they can do and that they're interested in doing, and it lowers their costs. It may seem like a very high agency cost, but when you think about building up a team internally, it doesn't make as much financial sense.
Right.
And it gives you the opportunity to pivot and to sort of move really quickly if it's not working out.
Well, then that makes the next question for me, I think, really obvious and clear, which is given the sort of topsy-turvy economy we're in right now, right? How is that sort of economic landscape affecting budgeting and priorities for companies?
Companies are really, as I said before, doubling down on what they're doing best, what they know they can do best. And so they're trying to allocate their spend to that. So for some businesses, that might be we're doubling down on our product spend because we know taking this product to the next level is really going to help. From a marketing perspective, the way that that translates is um, sort of a shift in focus on what is the language that we're going to use, what's the messaging that we're going to use, how are we going to target people. But that also has ramifications on marketing spend, both in terms of human resources, and investment in ad dollars, for example.
So, um, given that, uh, and you can't speak for every company, no one can, but for the companies that you're working with and talking to, what sort of marketing channels or tactics are given the best ROI for them right now for companies with small budgets that are trying to make a big impact?
Right now, I work with a lot of businesses on building out their brand. And one of the things that I've seen have a huge ROI is actually taking advantage of the CEO and the C-suite's personal LinkedIn network.
Mm.
Basically, a lot of work that I've started to do that gets a lot of traction, that starts to develop a lot of sales, is helping CEOs create content for their personal LinkedIn profiles and really target that content at a specific audience persona
Right.
while still making it feel natural and personal and coming from their own voice. Establishing the CEOs as thought leaders on LinkedIn is incredibly effective because LinkedIn has a huge, huge organic reach right now, more for personal profiles than for business profiles.
Hmm.
And so, for a lot of businesses that are thinking, oh, we should have a regular content cadence on our corporate LinkedIn or our corporate Instagram, That's all very well and good. But in comparison to personal profiles, the reach, the organic reach is not there. So a lot of businesses that don't want to put in a ton of ad spend right now, LinkedIn is the way to go. The other platform that's getting obviously a ton of organic reach is TikTok, but to be successful on TikTok requires a significant amount of time and resources to edit the number of videos.
Hmm.
Um, Although I've seen CEOs who are willing to go in front of the camera also be very successful there. All of this to say that a CEO who's willing to start putting content out there, whether it's ghost written or personally created, can have a huge impact on their sales. And they might not even realize that.
I have a just as an aside, just 10 minutes ago, I had a combination proud and disappointing experience on TikTok where this morning I checked the view count for this channel, for this podcast clips channel, and it was at 99,000 in the last like 7 or 8 months, and which is pretty good. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to go check. I bet it like hit 100, and it's not 100. It's 101. So I feel like when you're driving your car and the odometer is just about to get to 10, and I missed it
Yeah.
somehow by like who knows how many seconds or minutes. And instead, I never got to make a screenshot of the 100. I just have the 99 and 101.
Well,
Uh,
congrats on all of that success. I mean,
yeah,
clearly
TikTok is
2,000 views.
surprising source of traffic for fractional CMO stuff, and yet it's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about being a fractional CMO for a second. How has like the process of reaching clients or finding new clients changed over the past couple of years?
Well, for me, when I think about working as a fractional CMO, I think about what is my capacity? What's my time capacity? And my
Right.
time capacity is limited. I know how many hours per week I want to work. I know
Hmm.
the quality of work that I want to be giving to my clients. And so I really don't have capacity to take on fractional CMO clients. Probably, I don't have capacity to take on more than three, and probably four is the absolute most.
Yeah.
And so, in that sense, I feel like I've been lucky to have a consistent book of business over the past year or 18 months where I've had some long term clients who I've been sticking with and who have stuck with me, thankfully. So, I haven't really seen how the business environment has changed in terms of getting more clients. Um, it's something that I've been looking at clearly with interest as tech has been laying off thousands and thousands of jobs,
Hmm.
as the whole sort of labor market economy has been shifting. But I know when other fractional CMOs are starting to think about, or other individuals are starting to think about, should I become a fractional CMO?
Right.
That's one of the considerations is how are you going to get business and how many clients do you even want to take on?
Like actually, that's one of the questions I often ask now. But if you were if you'd agreed to show up at a Starbucks to sit down at a table with three people who just became fractional CMOs last week, right? Uh, what would you tell them about what they can expect in like the first 6 or 12 months of being a fractional CMO?
Do you mean they are now fractional
Yeah,
CMOs, as in they have a client,
they
or as in
voluntarily decided to leave corporate
yeah.
and go out on their own, put up a shingle, and now they're fractional CMOs. This is they just finished their first full week. Basically, they updated their LinkedIn profile. That's as far as they've gone.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say two big things.
Yeah.
One is that everybody dreams of having this steady book of business that's two,
Hmm.
three, four clients, and you don't have to do any business development. You know how everything is going. Um, and I think that that really is a dream for most people. In practice, it takes a really long time to get to two, three long-term clients. And I feel very lucky that I have a couple of those long-term clients. And the rest of my work is shorter term projects that are going in and out where I'm trying to suss out, is this a good fit for me? And I think the client is also trying to suss out, is Francesca a good fit for us? And sometimes those short-term engagements are a really good chance to work with a client and to see how it goes, to see if you can have the impact that you want to have. So I think the first thing I would say to this group of aspiring fractional CMOs is it will take you time to get to that steady book of business, and trying to balance how much business development do you do versus how much time are you spending on supporting your clients is always going to be a challenge. Um, I think the second thing that the second thing I would say is when you do fractional CMO work, there's an expectation that a lot of the work that you do is strategic, but then there's always the question of, okay, who's going to actually do the work? Who's going to do the implementation?
There you
Who's
go.
going to
Yeah.
do the day-to-day work? And so coming in either with a good network of people who are, call it copywriters, SEO experts,
Hmm.
marketing ops experts, those types of people who can help you actually do the work in case your clients don't have those, or in case your clients don't have an agency or a Rolodex of marketing talent, that's going to be really helpful and it's going to be a huge tool for you. And the question mark is always going to be, do you bring those individuals in under your own shingle or do you have them contract directly with your client?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's my whole business model. Is fractional CMOs generate almost all my business. Uh, do you think it's hard? I mean, I'll give you a weird statistic. A year ago, I go to LinkedIn, right, and I do a search globally for people with the title fractional CMO. There's like 3,400 at that point, and I'm connected to, like, first degree connected to about 25%. I go last month, and there's nearly 8,000 of them.
Wow.
And once again, I'm still connected to about 23%. Like, my own has grown, right? Uh, and so, on the one hand, there are a lot of people who are calling themselves fractional CMOs. But if you're a company looking to hire one, is it easier or harder to find a fractional CMO right now?
Yeah, I think there's confusion generally around the term fractional. And so for you to have a podcast that helps clarify what that term is incredibly helpful for all of us out there. Um, in terms of how to hire, I think it's probably gotten easier, honestly, because there are so many aggregator platforms now, like
Hmm.
Fractionals United, for example.
Right.
So businesses that are actively looking for somebody with the title fractional CMO could go to a platform such as Fractionals United or any other equivalent and say, all right, I'm looking to hire a fractional CMO. Is there a way that I can kind of filter through what the options are? Um, I think the challenge is finding someone who has the right industry experience, who has the right sort of marketing expertise that's required for the business's goals. Those are all challenges. And I know as much as people don't want to do this, most people hire through referral. And
Yeah.
so figuring out a way for a company to tap into a warm referral or any type of referral to get to the right fractional CMO is at the end of the day probably what's going to happen.
I had a conversation with one of the probably best known fractional CMOs in the United States a couple months ago, and we got on the topic of agencies. And I say, hey, because this is someone who's been like like a full time CMO at many different well known companies, and is now a fractional CMO for many different well known. I said, uh, when you were a regular CMO, hopefully that term's not offensive to anybody, regular CMO. Um, how did you like find agencies to work with? Like, how did you like? I don't mean like what was your experience, but like how did you like connect with them? And he said I would ask around and I would get referrals, and I say, so how is hiring an agency in 2024 any different than hiring an agency in 1924? And he said it is not. There's been no progress on that. It's easier to see their work, but you still find agencies exactly the same way as you did 100 years ago. You ask your friends and other people if they can, like, if there's someone that they trust or that they've worked with or they know about. I said that is wild, and yet
Yeah.
that's still a lot of it, right? Fractional CMOs, same thing. There were no fractional CMOs or hardly any, like 5 years ago. But like a lot of them are hired on referral.
And that's a huge challenge
Yeah.
for, I mean, that's a huge challenge for the employment market
Yeah.
overall, but that's a whole separate conversation.
That's a whole separate conversation. We're not going to do that. All right. So, I mean, you've been in marketing for a while. Okay. I want to give you a hypothetical. Your best friend has come to you and said, "Hey, my kid graduated from college a couple years ago and is now working their first ever full-time career marketing job. They're the most junior person on a marketing team at a company. Like, do you have any advice from someone who's like, gone up through the ranks and is now at the top of it? Do you have any advice on someone starting a marketing career in 2024 that, as far as they know, that's the career they're going to stay in or the field they're going to stay in for the next 30 years?
Yes. I think what's great about junior marketing roles is that people get a chance to look at all of the different facets of marketing and
True. Yeah.
start to identify what do they like? Because marketing is huge. I mean,
Yes.
we've already talked about copywriting, SEO. I mean, there's so many other components to how do you message? How are you going to shape a brand? Are you going to do social media management? Having those junior roles where you can start to try a little bit of everything and build yourself up first as a generalist before starting to specialize, it's a huge opportunity.
So, are there any sort of, we talked about tech and sort of downsizing. Are there any industries, let's say your friend says, hey, this person ends up working for a manufacturer, but, it's going to be multiple industries and companies over the course of their kid's career. Are there any industries that they should be looking at now? Like who's kind of growing marketing wise versus tech and a couple others that tend to be shrinking a bit? Or who should they stay away
Well,
from besides tech, you think?
I don't know that you necessarily should stay away from tech.
Yeah.
I think getting a sense of the type of marketing that you like to do is helpful. So, for example, e-commerce marketing is different than B2B marketing.
Or radio
The
advertising.
focus, right, exactly. The focuses are so different. And so
Yeah.
to start to get a sense for that is helpful. And I actually think, especially early on in in a career, having experience at an agency and having experience in-house can be hugely valuable because those are two completely different skill sets. At an agency, you get your reps in. You probably get your reps in on a very focused, sort of targeted area, but being in-house gives you a chance to sort of see what is a business thinking about from a big picture strategy perspective. How does marketing roll into that? And how does the entire marketing engine work? And honestly, I don't think that it matters so much. I don't think the industry focus matters so much. I think it's
Right.
more how do you experiment with the skills and how do you identify what's going to be um, your source of strength? What are you going to bring to the table from a marketing perspective?
From what you're seeing now, are there any sort of common mistakes companies are making or still making with their marketing that they should just stop? Or thinking that's sort of like old fashioned and they shouldn't be thinking along those lines anymore? Should they not worry about trying to be mentioned in print media? Should they not care about press releases anymore? Like, there's got to be like older thinking, right? And it's like, guys, like that's kind of not what people do now.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned press releases because just through some client conversations and through some business development conversations that I've been having recently, I realized that a lot of people think of PR as
Mhm.
part of marketing, and
Yeah, they so.
maybe it is, but I feel like there's a lot of gray area when you think about, okay, there's a gray handoff between marketing and sales. I also think there's a gray handoff between marketing and PR,
Hmm.
and that PR can certainly roll up into marketing. But as a marketer, I don't know that press is my first instinct. I think
Yeah.
right now in a digital age, we're thinking about who is the customer, who's the target audience, how do we reach them through digital channels, and how do we sort of do that in the most dollar efficient way. Not that, bus stop billboards don't help, but
Right.
that's not where I
Or
would
local
start.
TV ads or whatever, right?
Right. Right.
All right.
And I think when you have a big budget,
And
you can do that.
right. Um, well, let's wind down, but I do want to ask one more question. So, speaking of bus posters and stuff, um, what are your thoughts on sort of the future of traditional advertising mediums? TV, radio spots, half-page ads in magazines. Like, you don't. My guess is most of your clients don't come to you talking about that kind of stuff anymore. Or am I wrong about that?
Most of my clients don't,
Right.
but I think for clients who have significant budget, there's certainly room for that. And I think clients who are interested in thinking very creatively, there's absolutely room for that.
Hmm.
I just think about, for example, the Casper mattress
Hmm.
rollout where they were doing ads on the New York subway, and it was just covered. The New York subway was just covered with Casper mattress advertisements. You couldn't take a step without seeing that. And that's real dedication to say, okay, we're taking this city with millions and millions of people and we're going to just see what we can do. There's certainly room for that creative thinking. And I think anybody who is interested in doing a more guerrilla, more non-traditional um, campaign should certainly think about it.
I got a copywritten letter from a real estate company to introduce a realtor and like ask if I was willing to sell my house. And it's the first direct mail slash uncharitably called junk mail piece that I had read in years. And it was just so well done that, like, as a copywriter who writes that kind of, I don't write blog posts, I do content marketing, right? I do the stuff that you push in front of somebody to get them interested. I read that and it's like, this is really good. I had no interest in the realtor, but I put it aside saying at some point I need to contact this person and ask them who wrote this. I wanted to find, and like, who reads that stuff anymore? And yet I got hired last year to do postcards and sales letters for a broadband company in the Southwest. And it's like, like the oldest traditional kind of media. How almost, it's like, I'll give you an example. Someone told me last year, he's in sales. He says, believe it or not, the gains we're seeing right now all come from calling people. He said, for a long time, no one would answer a call, right? And now nobody calls anybody. And so
Wow.
you call people, a lot of the times people actually answer the phone again, right? And so, like, it was basically, it was dead as a communication channel or a marketing channel, a sales channel. And now it's like coming back to life because it's been dead long enough that you can go back to it.
What's old is new again.
Yeah. Marketing, cold
Yeah.
calling. Can you imagine?
Well, it's all about how do you stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
So right now, apparently cold calling is how you do that.
Any place you can be where most of your competitors are not going to be. I
Right.
mean, chances are it's pretty cheap to be there. So what you pick up's gravy.
I
Okay, speaking
mean,
of that, last question. I know I said last one's question, but this is real last question. I promise. Is there anything that sort of, as you're like working with clients and you're trying different, different communication channels, different media, and so on, different approaches? Is there anything that's sort of, as a marketing strategy, kind of underrated right now? Like, it works better than people think.
so apart from LinkedIn personal
Yeah,
profiles.
that was a good
Yeah.
one, by the way.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
basically like personal branding for the
Yeah,
people in the company instead of the company itself.
right. I think the other thing that can be done really well
Mhm.
is email marketing, and I think a lot of people are filtering out conversations, and Gmail is doing that automatically for you.
Mhm.
Um, but I
Right.
think there's opportunity to stand out there, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to experiment with the visual side, the messaging side, the length of the message, who it gets sent from. There's a lot of ways of experimenting, and owning an email list is so much better for a business long term than relying on a platform such as LinkedIn or YouTube
Right.
for subscribers.
I wrote a campaign for a client at the beginning of last year, so it's almost 2 years ago. And they wanted something. I can't go into details, and it was a cold email campaign. And I'm only talking about it because it's so weird. But the open rate got to like 80% on cold email, and then it went to 90%, and then it
Wow.
exceeded 100%.
Oh,
It was forwarded on.
wow.
Yeah. I said, okay, I can literally never talk about this when I'm trying to sign a new client because you can never ever talk about it. Or I'll have some of that, please. It's like I'm not even sure that's ever going to be replicated, bro. Like that is really tough. But like, yeah, it had like 102% open rate.
Wow.
I mean, open rates are elevated, sort of inflation elevated anyway, because some services actually like open the email to check the links for phishing and stuff. But like to get past 100, like I said, I'm going to take a screenshot of it just so I have my own proof. I can never talk about this again to anybody.
I feel like you need to do a whole other episode
Mm.
on Dean's secrets.
Oh God, no, no, that would be terrible.
You know,
Yeah, no.
the things the dean will never say in sales calls.
Yeah, the things I'll never tell clients ever. That would work. All right, Francesca, thanks so much for coming back. And I mean, from episode 5 to episode 120, it's been great to have you back again. Like
Thank
you
you.
hold the record, so that's kind of great.
Thanks, Dean.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure talking to you.
Maybe we'll see you around episode 300 or so, if there is such a thing as episode 300.
I
Uh,
hope for your sake, yeah.
all right, thanks.